have played about 30 hours of Ghost of Yotei. I love it. I love it. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And I'm a huge fan of your previous work also. And I would like to ask you some questions, if you don't mind.
Not at all.
So, when did the idea of Ghost of Yotei first take shape? Was it something already in the back of your mind while developing Ghost of Tsushima, or did it emerge later as a natural evolution of the idea?
The ideas that came together to be Ghost of Yotei happened after Ghost of Tsushima. As Sucker Punch were big fans of origin stories, and particularly stories of underdogs. So we wanted to tell one of those, with a new character. We also got exposed to the folklore of the Onmuro, this vengeance ghost that in Japanese folklore are typically female. So those two ideas together led to Atsu, our new hero.
Great. The game clearly carries influences from both samurai cinema and westerns. Much like how spaghetti westerns were inspired by Kurosawa's work. How did you approach blending those traditions in Ghost of Yotei?
Well, we absolutely are inspired by the works of Akira Kurosawa. It sets our standard for what a samurai is, the beauty of feudal Japan, and stories that are very relatable as human beings, that have a lot of heart. We want to make sure that's always in a Ghost game. But for this game, we had set it in Ezo, which is modern-day Hokkaido. But back in 1603, Ezo was beyond the rule of the shogun. It was a lawless wilderness. And to make that really apparent to players, we added in some elements that were very Wild West-like, because these cues remind you, they make you think, oh, this is a lawless place. The music, I think, is where it's most evident. You can hear some orchestration that sounds like a Wild West film. But there are other cues, too. A classic is Atsu walks into an inn, and everyone stops drinking. The music stops, eyes turn to her, and she's like a gunslinger in the Old West. You're right. Akira Kurosawa studied westerns before making his movies, John Ford films, he would often reference. And so there's an interplay between these two genres that have a lot of overlap. I can tell you, bring up spaghetti westerns. That was something, those films, rather, were very inspiring to us while making Ghost of Tsushima, because Sergio Leone made, and so many of his colleagues, a western in Italy, right? That was a love letter to the genre, even though they weren't from the culture that created or featured the West. But they loved the genre. So while we're making Ghost of Tsushima, I would often refer to our game as a cheeseburger samurai, like a spaghetti western, because we love samurai stories and we wanted to contribute to that genre, even though we weren't from that culture, just like spaghetti westerns did.
Atsu is a fascinating new protagonist. She's sharp, sarcastic, and feels very distinct compared to Jin Sakai. How did you go about building her character, and what goals did you set to differentiate her from Jin? And speaking of Jin Sakai, was there ever a debate within the team about bringing him back as the central character?
Well, we know that we wanted to do an origin story of a new character when we set out to make Ghost of Yotei. And definitely the new character wanted to be their own person. Jin Sakai was born into a noble family, was samurai. He was taught from an early age about the right way to act. People viewed him as an authority everywhere he went. He was kind of famous, right? That's not Atsu. Atsu was born into a common family. She wasn't trained from the cradle on how to hold a sword exactly right. She learned as she could from a variety of teachers because her family was taken from her at a young age. And she's had to live with trauma her entire life, training her mind and her body in order to get revenge. And so she's just different. She doesn't fight by a set of rules. She'll do whatever it takes to win.
I see. I found her very funny. She has excellent sense of humor.
I'm happy you...
She's very well written, very well written. And now, you've made sequels before, but this time the direction feels a little more like improving systems rather than transforming them. What influenced your decision to take that approach?
Well, Ghost of Tsushima was a game we always wanted to play, and that's why we made it, because we thought, we're gamers, this is the kind of game we'd like to see. And when some of the systems work and really excite people's imaginations, like the guiding wind or our combat system, lethal precision that you see in these classic samurai films, we kept those close to our heart. We want to make sure that they would show up in Ghost of Yotei. But we've tried to add to them, to make them deeper and richer. We didn't want to get rid of something that made gamers happy.
Okay. If you had to choose, what's the single most important element of Ghost of Yotei for you personally?
Well, I certainly love Atsu's story of triumphing over trauma. But for me personally, the most important experience is actually when you get done with a mission and you overcame some horrible battle, right? And you're breathing heavy, you feel great because you just won. And you look around and you say, what do I want to do next? So in open world games, this is a special moment, right? Because nobody's telling you what to do. You could keep going with the story. You could go try and find a secret. You could go do a shrine climb. You could do any number of things. Player's in charge. And in that exact moment, you see a red tree up on a high cliff, and you think, well, that is a weird looking tree. I'm going to go check it out. And just based on entirely your own curiosity, you decide to go up there. That is a perfect moment in video games because it is just you deciding where to go next. In Ghost of Yotei, we try to make these moments happen again and again, where you were guided by your curiosity across the map, discovering things that you didn't think were there, and making the adventure really very much your own. And you played the game. Hopefully you've experienced a little bit of this when you get lost in immersion.
I feel exactly what you described. I felt exactly like that. I believe it's much improved in that aspect from Ghost of Tsushima.
Right.
You made it much more, go and explore.
Yeah, we're really passionate about that. That's why the map's not filled with icons. We got rid of the journal screen.
The UI also is.
Yeah. So, yeah, no UI means you're looking at the game's world, the art, nature, animals, maybe a campfire by a river. You know somebody must have made that campfire. So you want to investigate with your real human senses, right? Your eyes and your ears. This is immersion to us, and it's something that is just open worlds, right? Like this is something that this genre of game lets people do.
Great. Now, about some tech. How did developing exclusively for the PS5 help you achieve your creative vision of the game?
Oh, PS5 is fantastic because with the SSD, it let us have, in some places in the game, 2 times loaded simultaneously. When you go back to Atsu's home as an adult, you're a lonely character, and you can see this house that's been broken down by weather and time. And then just with a one button push, you're back to being a little girl surrounded by family. Press the button again, you're an adult. Through interactivity, you can feel that. And we could only do that because of the PS5 and its SSD. But the real deep magic of PlayStation 5, no, I don't see it anywhere, is the DualSense controller. Haptics. Haptics, I think, are incredibly transformative in your experience making and playing games. We might make a sword fight in our game, but having a controller where you can feel swords coming together, clashing, where you can use the touchpad to do sumi-e paintings or 6-axis to mimic hammers coming down. It's just immersion. It makes you feel, literally feel with your hands, the gameplay happening to you. I can't get enough. It makes me wish that that kind of sense the physical sense that that controller brings was available in other media, like watching television. I love that about the PS5. And I'm sure as a gamer, you've experienced what it's like to not suddenly have the dual sense. And when you go back to, maybe a PS2 game.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer. The DualSense is one way. Art direction has always been a strength for Sucker Punch. Can you walk us through your philosophy, particularly your use of bold, saturated colors? Most open-world games stick to a more mutated palette, but you've chosen a more striking approach. Could you tell us a bit about that?
Well, we want the world to be romantic. It is a romanticized ideal of feudal Japan. We're not making a stone-for-stone reproduction of Ezo at this time. When you go into your imagination about what it would be like to go there, that is the kind of experience we want to deliver to you. Of course, we're looking to make sure that we have a sense of cultural authenticity too, mainly so we don't break immersion for Japanese gamers who have much more aware of all the cultural conventions. But the beauty of those classic samurai movies is that they are stripped down and it creates a sense of poetry. And that's what we try and capture with the use of color and variety and negative space inside of the game world.
I see. And finally, what can you tell us about historical authenticity, especially in relation to the Ainu people and that period of that the game depicts?
Well, when you choose to set a game in Hokkaido, you're going to want to do a good job with Ainu representation. Thankfully, Sucker Punch is a member of PlayStation, which is a Japanese company. So even though Sucker Punch is an American company, we can talk to our colleagues in Tokyo who give us feedback on the game so we can smooth out aspects of the game that break a sense of authenticity. And we surround ourselves with advisors who give us all sorts of very specific feedback on how characters should move or hold weapons or what sort of costumes would be appropriate. We use that same strategy for our Ainu representation. We have an advisor who looks at every script, sees every mission, comments on it, and we make adjustments so that we can do the best job possible with Ainu representation.
All right. Great. Thank you very much.
Yeah.